Server, you remind us of our Savior's bull and towel. Teacher, you are raising up a child to be kind. Lawyer, give us hope that justice one day will surround us. May God's kingdom come, on earth His will be done.
Ephesians 4:25 through 29 in the Christian Standard Bible say, "Therefore, putting away lying, speak the truth, each one to his neighbor, because we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, and don't give the devil an opportunity. Let the thief no longer steal. Instead, he is to do honest work with his own hands, so that he has something to share with anyone in need. No foul language should come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need, so that it gives grace to those who hear." In the book of Ephesians, St. Paul is explaining what it means to be the church, and before this pericope, Paul wrote that the church is to work together in all of our different roles. Here he insists that the church builds one another up in word, in deeds, and in ties to our occupational work, to this idea. Joe, how do you think the way that we, the church, present ourselves in work ties into the idea of building one another up?
Well, I mean, there's characteristics that should be intrinsic to the life and behavior of a Christian in every single aspect of how we do life and cooperate with one another. So if we're bringing those edicts and we're bringing those values into the various aspects of our life, it's going to affect how we engage with one another, how we do business with one another, how we live life among other people.
Hey guys, welcome to the Whole Church podcast, doing the Whole Church job fair. Guys, we are kicking off a brand new series. It's going to have a lot of fun with this one, guys. We're going to be talking to people, not necessarily the pastors and the scholars that sometimes maybe you guys got used to over here. We're still going to have some pastors and scholars, like our guest today. But we're going to have people who work ordinary jobs, who understand what the real world is like. And we're going to ask them whether the stuff that the pastors and theologians are talking about actually really make a difference in their lives at all. So today, we're going to be explaining the series a little bit, so we're going to get into it a little bit more, and we're going to be talking with a few guests about the food industry and how our theology does or doesn't impact the daily lives of people working in food. So, I'm here with the wonderful Pastor Joe Day. How's it going?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. And we're also here, the other guest we mentioned, you should be familiar with, not only from our show in the past, but also from our sister show, Systematic Theology, one of the hosts over there, and chef, and someone who has minister credentials involving schooling, the one and only Liz Clyde. How's it going?
Hello. Good.
Yeah. And, of course, the reason for the season. The reason food exists. You know, at one point, we were just kind of eating grass like the cows. And then someone invented the culinary arts. The same time they invented art, and that was the one and only TJ, Tiberius Juan, Blackwell. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah. I thought you might say that, weirdly enough. But yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, you should also check out the Onazel Podcast Network website. We talked about our sister show. That's where you can find it. It's links below. Click that. Click us. Click our friends. You should also check out the Whole Church store. We've got some job fair specific merch coming out for this series. Our product manager, I think, just recently was aware of that, so it is a work in progress.
Yeah, right this second I became aware of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that is the plan.
Yeah. And also, while you're over there, you should check out our Patreon. You can get discounts on this merch that doesn't exist yet. And I gotta do some backstory for today's silly question. You guys know we always do the Holy Sacrament of Silliness every episode before we kick things off. We opened up for this series on our group page on Facebook, and we're like, hey guys, what do you guys think are the biggest things that people talk about in church and in theology schools? Because we wanted to see what people actually thought were being talked about, so that when we're asking people, hey, are these things relevant, it's actually the stuff that's being talked about. And for some reason, someone added the question whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. That's something they wanted to hear people talk about on this series. And not only did someone randomly add it, a bunch of people voted for that as an important theological topic. So, our silly question, brought to you by our good friend Sam Perez. I'm going to ask you guys. TJ and I will answer first. Actually, I think only one of us should answer now. The other one should wait till the end of the series. Make people wait in anticipation. TJ will answer first. TJ, share your wisdom. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
According to the USDA and the FDA, if it can be a sandwich if it is at least 35% cooked meat and no more than 50% bread for a closed sandwich, and then at least 50% cooked meat for an open-faced sandwich. The problem is a hot dog is not strictly an open-faced sandwich, nor is it a traditional sandwich because it is a split bun, and that's where a lot of the problems come with this interpretation. That USDA manual then goes on to talk about burritos, which are a sandwich-like, and frankfurters, which are a sandwich type, but not strictly sandwich. I say yes.
Also,
staunchly yes.
Why does the U.S. get to define what a sandwich is?
We live here.
That should be up to the U.K.
That's
They
a
started the
governing.
word.
That's a governing authority for us. That's what we're talking about.
But also, hey, when we did the poor people hot dogs, where just one piece of bread, there was no split entry.
For sure, a sandwich.
That's definitely a sandwich. Yeah.
That is for
All right,
sure an
and-
open-faced sandwich.
I love that this silly question is also here while we're talking about food industry for the first episode. So like you get the official answer first, and then hear what everybody else thinks, guys. Joe already talked. Liz, is a hot dog a sandwich?
If cauliflower can be a pizza, a hot dog can be a sandwich.
All right. Joe, take us home.
No, absolutely. So I actually ran a hot dog under a sandwich menu one time, and the reactions from people were quite diverse and very interesting. But yes, it is 100% a sandwich.
All right. Well, if you guys want my answer, you'll have to wait till the end. But so far, we have 3 for 3. Hot dog's a sandwich.
Hot dog is a sandwich. But
Turns out.
in what way, if any, do you think this question could be relevant to your life? Pang. Liz. Real name. Whatever.
Still not even my name, but alright.
Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Beth.
Ill.
I want a petition
Elizabeth?
to only call her Beth from now on.
I would ignore you. So,
But yeah, if any, is this question relevant to your life?
absolutely not. I don't care.
Joe's
what you
already
think
answered.
for
It
now.
was relevant to his life at least once.
Yeah, it was.
But I mean, you said cooked meat, so what about like, an eggplant sandwich, you know what I mean, for the vegetarians? You just opened up the whole
Vegetarians don't get sandwiches.
Yes,
They
they
don't
can't
get
have
sandwiches.
sandwiches.
Okay. I was just curious.
I disagree with that particular logic.
Because
though.
if you
Well,
if
you
you
see,
do
the
that,
problem-
then can a cake be a sandwich? You
If
know,
we're
like-
going to go back into the question, then the problem being the USDA traditionally only covers meats. And they've grown over the years to cover more foodstuffs, but what they're concerned about is meat.
Yeah.
So, of course, their answer is going to revolve around cooked meats.
I think you'd get a similar answer if you asked Ron Swanson. And
No,
he
he
would
would
say it
want
absolutely
100%
matters.
meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, "Give me all the meat with no bread."
Yeah. So far to me, it hasn't been relevant in the sense that the content of the question matters, but I've had this debate many, many, many times.
All right. Well then, there we have it. There we have it. Oh man. All right. So guys, the reason we're doing this series, so we kind of mentioned to you a little bit what it is. We're talking to people about their day jobs and whether or not the stuff that we're talking about in our churches and our seminaries are actually impacting them. There's a lot of reasons. The easy reason is like, if it's not relevant, then why are we talking about it? Like honestly, the easy reason is the whole reason theology and philosophy and all this stuff exists is supposedly because it's giving people reason for what they're doing, reason for life, all that kind of thing. So if it's not relevant, we're kind of just spinning the wheel here. The other reason is a lot of our listeners, actually a majority, are pastors or theologians or church leaders of some sort, and we think that they could benefit from hearing more and learning more from people in other occupations. Like seriously, it is. If we had like a map with like the dots like Verizon, it's really funny when you look at our listeners. Like, hey, it lights up in Louisville, Kentucky. It lights up in Dallas, Texas. It lights up in like all those, Wheaton, Illinois. And I'm like, yeah, I know where our listeners are. They're the people attending seminaries. So now you guys can hear from normal people. Congratulations. You're welcome. Something.
I'm not sure that you could ever accuse chefs of being normal people, but I digress.
Yeah, because
I
you
don't
literally
believe
just
normal
judged me
people
for working
exist.
80 hours this week. How
Yeah,
is
I don't
that
believe
normal?
that normal people exist.
That's very
Well,
chef typical.
I gotta let you know. I know it. Probably about half my friends do work about 80 hours. Not most of them are in food. It's just normal American behavior to work too much. But that I also digress.
80 is too much, but
It's way too
this is the
When
like
you're a
lawyer
pastry
work.
person and it's Valentine's week.
fair.
Mm.
Touche.
Yeah,
Tis the
I bet that
season.
is intense.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
baked over 1,500 cookies.
Yeah. I worked in a restaurant at a mall during Christmas time. It was definitely typical then.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
Sounds
called
rough.
out except for me, basically, and TJ.
That was rough, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is our introduction episode to the series, and we wanted to unpack some of mine and Josh's own history in the workplace to see what may be relevant as we go through the series.
Yeah. So, TJ, where all have you worked? I know you've done welding. You're in food now. What other stuff do people need to know that like you've done as far as work?
Technically, I run a ministry,
Yeah.
and I do own a business. We build computers.
I would say the computer thing's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
camp.
that's it.
You work church camp. I think that counts.
That's not.
That's
doesn't count.
volunteer.
That's volunteer
It
work.
counts.
No.
It does
If
not.
you write it right, it works on a resume.
Not only does it not count, it's not relevant to this because it's church.
Yeah, that's true. It is still church related. Yeah, I have had a few different jobs in churches, pastor jobs. I think probably the most interesting one is where I did spend a couple years just starting up children's churches throughout a couple different cities. That was fun. But most of my work has either been in food or specifically grocery. I spent a lot
I
of
got
time
you a
working
job
in
at
groceries.
Piggly Wiggly, remember? When you
That
were in
is true.
college?
She did help me get a job at Piggly Wiggly once. But
I
I
will
had
say-
already worked in Harris Teeter before then, but that
I
helped.
still recommended you.
I
I
probably
have
wouldn't have got
been
without you.
I've been approached to work at a couple of restaurants that I've turned down to stay with my current restaurant, which will remain unnamed.
Oh, let's see. I'm
For
gonna
now.
name it.
Cool.
For now.
Yeah, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. So my other stuff outside of grocery, I worked a lot of grocery: Harris Teeter, Kroger's, Piggly Wiggly, Bilo, and Food Lion.
The pig.
I've done a few different restaurants, mostly Domino's, then Chipotle. I've done a couple others, but they don't really count because I was there for such a short period of time. And obviously a lot more ministry, a lot of volunteer, random stuff here and there. The other one that might be interesting and come up throughout the series, I worked for Shutterfly for a little while doing yearbook edits, so graphic design, photo editing, that kind of stuff is also a big part of my work career life. Yeah. But that's where we're coming from. It'll probably come out throughout the series, I feel like, most likely. But we do want to focus on you guys today. And specifically the food industry experience everyone's had. All four of us have some experience in food. I just kind of want to see if you guys could unpack some for our listeners. Your history, both in the workplace, and then also with the church, since both of you also have experience with the church in one way or another. We want to be transparent. We have a few guests that we're like, oh, hey, these are normal people, but also they've been pastors. So we don't want to be like, hey, just because we're talking to people about their day life does not mean they don't have any ministry experience. That's just not what we're here to talk about this time. So I'm going to start. I introduced him as pastor earlier. So Joe, what do you want to like as far as food? What is your experience? I'm just kind of unpack a little bit for us what you've done with food.
So I am a second generation chef. So I grew up around the industry, much to my family's chagrin. Took my way through college where I was going to school for tech. Um, Absolutely fell in love with the industry and went with it. And so spent about 15 years traveling the country, working in kitchens, running kitchens in a variety of different states and contexts, um, including getting evaluated for a Michelin star, and where I fell out of love with the restaurant business. Um, the industry is something, if you love it, if you hate it, it is torture. It is hell. And so, specifically on the savory side, my fellow chef here will be able to give a different POV from the other side. But as a savory chef, it's it's intense if you don't love it. And so I stepped away for a couple of years, and then before I broke my leg, I got into private event stuff, pop-ups, and different things like that. And since I am right on the heels of being back to regular life, once everything is all cleared up and all of that, I have every intention of starting that up again. So,
All right, all right. Liz, what about you? What's your history with food? Your experience? What do you do?
Well,
And
hello
you
from the other
unpack your
side.
church experience too if you want.
Okay. Well, first, it's all about the cakes for me, the sweet stuff. I hate savory. I think it's stupid. So thank you, Joe, for doing the stupid stuff. Appreciate you. The reason why
I
I
will
like
always skip dessert for savory, just for the record.
there's
Weighing in on the debate.
because it's you have to kind of like prep more for desserts. You can't just like whip out a cake. You know what I mean? So you have to
It
like
doesn't
right.
taste
take
as
a little
good.
bit more planning. But then it's nice because I could prep ahead because I don't have to worry about like room temperature and all that stuff with baking and pastry. So definitely like two different side of the coin, but like super different. So I did grocery stores. My favorite, I think, was working banquets in a five-star hotel. I loved plating like 200 to 500 plates of the same exact monotonous thing. It was just so satisfying for an OCD person. I've done like restaurants, hotels, cake decorator at for Piggly Wiggly. I worked for their corporate and I called myself the cake drifter. It was very great because I would travel to different Piggly Wigglies, making sure that bakery was good to go. And now I call it my big girl job. I'm the director of recruitment for the college, but I have my little cake empire on the side where I do like different dessert caterings. I do have a couple corporate clients for like their logo cookies and yeah. And then for ministry, that's how I got into education. I was working for the church, and then I started helping out with the college ministry, ran their extension site, and that's how I ventured into higher education and recruitment. Oh yeah, I also taught culinary for a little bit in one of the many avenues. But yeah, but right now I work for myself as a cake person and director of recruitment for a college. So I stay busy. It's a lot of fun. Oh, and I married a pastor, so always at the church still.
Yeah, yeah. And we love Taylor. He's also been a guest a few times.
Yep,
And
he is. He's the show husband, actually.
Yeah, that's
He's
true.
so good. I love him. You know what? I'm gonna go kiss him later.
I
Me too.
won't.
You should.
Oh man. But I'm gonna break forms for a second because that next question's worded weird. I meant to edit this outline today, but I got busy with a Steam Deck. Um, I kind of want to unpack a little bit because there's different, like when you say you work in food, you can mean so many different things by that. Like it's actually truly crazy. We already even got a little bit of it just from like pastry to savory stuff. But like for TJ and I, our experience is in like what's called quick service restaurant. We both work for Chipotle. I meant to put a disclaimer on this, since this is going to come out probably throughout the series. There are some things we can and cannot say due to legal contract we have signed to work for Chipotle.
Tell us the seasoning. What's the
we
Krabby
cannot
Patty
tell
secret
recipes.
formula?
We can't give away the Krabby Patty formula, anything like that. We are allowed to say
Chicken pastor.
whether or not we like our job. We're allowed to say that kind of thing. We're allowed to talk about what we do. We're just not allowed to get into specifics, and we're not allowed to be like, here's the worst company ever and why you shouldn't work for Chipotle. We're actually just not allowed to do that. We're allowed to say we don't like it, but we're not allowed to tell you guys not to work at Chipotle. Yeah. So I did actually ask a lot of questions to some of our uppers because I'm like, hey, we're doing the series and I need to know what we're allowed to say. But so quick service is kind of like in between fast food and sit down restaurant kind of thing. It's actually like a little bit of the worst of both worlds, but that's part of why I love it personally. Because you have that thing of like, hey, people expect their food immediately when they show up, but also it all has to be fresh, so you have to cook it as they show up. And that's a pain. It is
thank you for
an
your
incredible
service.
pain. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much the worst thing ever, actually. I love my job.
Yeah, I was gonna
But-
say, I also love it though. Like I love like when you get like a really busy day. I'm the only person on grill, and it's like I'm gonna make enough chicken for like the next 200 people in like 2 hours, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just balancing the weight of expectation versus the expectation to wait. They don't want anyone in line for more than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in line for more than 30 seconds.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
this is
I
perfect.
also get it. Yeah. So some of the differences too come with like a lot of your fast food. I won't talk too much crap about it because Domino's is pretty much the same thing. It's a lot less culinary arts. You're just kind of making the food. You're serving a lot of customers, and it is hard work. But it is a very different thing than quick service or the kind of thing that Liz and Joe does. Quick service is kind of in between. If TJ and I wanted, because of how high we're up in there, we can get some credits towards a culinary degree if we wanted to, but it would not just give us a culinary degree with what we're doing. So it is not culinary arts. It's like culinary art light, like a stepping stone if we wanted to later do that, but we cannot call ourselves culinary artists or chefs. Joe and Liz, on the other hand, are in fact chefs and do culinary arts.
I wear a chef's coat every day. So
As
I
you
also
should,
do
King.
wear a chef's coat, though. I love it. It's so fun, especially in the winter when it's cold. 'Cause
So I
ours is
think
hot,
maybe.
super hot. Yeah. Yeah. I don't do it just because like I'm like I know how much work some people put into actually getting a culinary
it's super
arts
different.
degree.
yeah, I do think the only
But it's fun wearing a chef's coat.
similarity is really like a prep chef and a Chipotle prep person. It is going to be different because a typical prep chef has a lot more things to do in smaller quantities typically.
Yeah.
But it's the closest analog, I think, from Chipotle to like a standard sit-down restaurant.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I wanted to throw something to Joe here too, because like TJ and I are both like we dab in culinary stuff at home too. Partially, a lot of mine came from I got enough experience at like Chipotle, and then also I did work for like Piggly Wiggly and Food Lion, and for a while I was in like the deli and stuff, and we had to like make some of the salads and chicken salad and whatever, and it got me just enough that I was like, I bet I could make my own recipes, and then I did, and I was like, this is great. And I think a lot of people at home do stuff, and they're like, I want to call myself a chef, and I do culinary stuff too, and that is one of those things that like you say to someone who actually put in the work, and that's you can really get them going. So let's get Joe going. Joe, why is that? Like what is the difference of people who are like, I like cooking at home or like they do fast food, and kind of like what you and Liz are talking about?
So, I full disclosure. This may in fact trigger my fellow chef here, depending on where she falls on this paradigm. I do not think that you need culinary school in order to be a chef. I am the type of person that if you know what you're doing, if you're good, it's yes chef, heard chef. It's that I think that I think that that title is earned not from a school, it is earned from lived in experience. Now, we have in a post Food Network world a lot more people who have a lot more skills at home. And I think that's wonderful. I think more people need to know how to cook. I think more people need to not be afraid to get creative and explore, because working with food is amazing. It is a wonderful, wonderful experience. That being said, though, we also, with that, have this phenomena of folks with a smartphone and an Instagram account calling themselves a social media chef. So, if the only thing that you have ever done is cook at home, if the only thing that you've ever done is make a single plate of food, gotten the lighting just right, and taken a really nice picture, hit up restaurants and find yourself a gig doing food photography, because that's its own thing. Food photography is big business. Go ahead and do that. But go ahead and step on the line, or step in a catering event, or step in a I'm not just saying that chefs live and die on the line, because I don't think that's true either. But step in any professional arena within the culinary world and tell me if you can actually hang with chefs. That's my only thing. And this is coming from somebody like, because I didn't go to culinary school, I came up the hard way, and I understand what it means to earn your stripes, to get to the point of working yourself from the bottom up. I am very forgiving and very giving of that title. I see it as a sign of respect, that if I can, I give it. It's just when you start to really exercise that term to mean that you made a good plate of food at home, and then start calling yourself a home-based chef.
Mhm.
All right.
I do feel like there is one really massive piece of evidence to support Joe's stance here. One of the most famous chefs in the world does not have a culinary degree.
Ratatouille.
Gordon Ramsay.
Little chef. Oh,
No, Ratatouille is more important though.
that's what I
Go-
thought.
Ratatouille also does not have a culinary degree, but Gordon Ramsay doesn't either.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
Gordon Ramsay has a degree in hotel management. He
Yep.
does not have a culinary arts degree.
Wild. All right, Liz, same question.
Yeah, I don't care. You can call yourself whatever. You the chef of your own house, I guess. And it's not gonna make me lose sleep.
But like,
What it's
Okay, go
crazy because I care more when people give themselves title pastors without doing the work. But like chef, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I
But
think because I care
would you say
so
is-
strongly about that, I don't care about that.
yeah. Well, how would you define? Because I know you do like catering, but how would you define like the difference of what you do, as opposed to someone who's like, hey, I made a cake and brought it to a friend's house? Like, is there really a huge difference?
I mean, I guess, and Joe said it. If you needed to have a difference, the key word is professionals. Like, so to be a professional, you're going to get paid to do it. So it doesn't even have to really be in a kitchen. So if you are like, technically, I don't refer to myself, since I'm no longer I'm no longer teaching culinary, so I don't hear Chef Clyde anymore. What's funny, because I was going through my old thing and look, someone wrote me, one of my students wrote me a card. I found it. So, but I wouldn't classify myself as a chef at the moment, because even though I'm still in a professional settings and I have like Google's one of my clients and I've done stuff for them. It's just me, you know what I mean? I don't care. So technically I could still put on a business card that I am a pastry chef, but
Yeah.
it doesn't
and
matter.
then if you get like,
And-
there are definitely realms of elitism to the world of food. Because like some people wouldn't call Pang a chef. They would call Pang a patissier, but they would say she's not a chef.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It just
Now,
depends
see,
on
to
like
me,
what you
that's
want.
insanity. To me, like to anybody who looks at a patissier, and I'm gonna get real like inside baseball here for a second. To anybody who looks at a patissier and says you're not a real chef, you go in that kitchen, you make 1,000 cookies, you make
You make a
700
souffle.
pastries for, you know what? Yeah, exactly. You make a souffle and see what's up.
It's
You know what
really
I mean?
fun.
Like it's not. And you'll hear what you've already heard, little things back and forth. To the other side of the coin, to what Peng said before, about having a particular distaste for the savory side. Dude, I'm when it comes to baking, I'm like a 14-year-old boy. I'm all hands. Like I'm all thumbs when it comes to baking. Like I'll throw you together some rough and ready cookies or something like that. Like I'll throw something together for you. But everything that you're saying you don't like about the savory side is exactly why that's my world. And part of it is for me, I haven't really talked about the ministry side because we've been focusing on the chef side, but I do think it's interesting how there are some parallels between that title of chef and that title of pastor. That for both of them, they are titles that, in ways, are earned by putting in work, by actually doing the thing, by actually fulfilling the tenets of what the call actually is. Anybody and everybody. I am a church planter as well as everything else. I that was my first foray into having that title of pastor. That was before getting ordained and all of that. And I had people calling me pastor at a point where I wasn't ready to have that title. I wasn't ready for that responsibility. So I'm right there with Pang about the fact that there is a whole group of people out in ministry that utilize that term, that phrase, just because they've either started a ministry, started a church, figured out, a means into a situation, or like social media chefs, you've got social media pastors where you start up an Instagram account and you can call yourself whatever you please on that Instagram account and start to build a following. To me, as far as the title goes, I fundamentally believe, and some people likewise to what Peng is saying, because I no longer work a line, and I pretty much am at the point in my life where I would never go back to working a line. For some people, I'll never be a chef again. To hell with that. Like that's something that you earn, and once you have it, it's once a chef, always a chef. So I would always, to Pang's situation and the fact that she's working for herself and doing those things and all of that. Well, she might not necessarily hold close that title. To me, it would always be chef because she put in her stripes because she earned it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Personally, I think you're not a chef unless you have a bunch of little scars on your arms.
That's true too. Yeah,
I covered
garlic
mine with tattoos.
deep embedded into your
Yeah.
skin.
You gotta,
I
you gotta have one. You gotta get them.
It's funny.
My
I
left
got
arm's really bad, actually.
There. Yeah.
My right arm's
Um,
not that bad.
yeah.
My left arm's awful.
Luckily, we're not doing brisket right now, so we don't get those grease pops.
I have brisket
But-
right now. I just
Keep
made
it.
some Korean barbecue. I made it with some
It's
brisket.
different. I
Nice.
I want to say though, for me, one of the important things, and this is funny because this is not something we intended to be part of our series, but we're going to do it here. Um, the chef and pastor thing. One of the things I find similar, and why I actually do think titles are important. I don't like calling someone a chef or anything, or a pastor, without some kind of validation regarding safety, at least. So, like, if someone's not EcoSure verified or been trained in some kind of way where I'm like, oh, wait, I know that the food coming from you is actually safe, nah. I don't want to call them a chef because then I feel like I'm endorsing their food. And if they get somebody sick, that it's kind of my fault. It's why I don't want anyone to be like, it's why we don't promote managers until they've been validated EcoSure. At Chipotle anyway. And the same thing like with pastors. Like I don't need a degree, but like I need to know like who did you train under? Who did this? Like how do we know that you're actually someone safe that I can trust other people in your care and I don't need to like rail against the system because this guy is dangerous, you know? That's just my thing. My thing is more about safety when it comes to titles than anything else because when you give someone a title, you're saying this is something that's trustworthy.
Yeah, and we did want to talk about things that like what's normal in your occupation that others might not think about. In restaurants, we've got like front of the house versus back of the house, day shift, night shift, that kind of thing. What stuck out to you? I don't know.
I mean,
It's hard to answer because
well,
it's just what we
I
do.
just didn't want to overtalk Joe. I didn't know who was going to do it. I mean, the big difference thing is just like the speed of culinary, because
True.
someone can, take 24 hours to respond to an email, and that's their job, which is fine. But please, don't do that. Uh, but it's the speed of it. Like whenever, for example, Valentine's Day, that's one day. Like I don't get to take my time baking these cookies. I don't get to take my time making all these chocolate covered strawberries. Like so, I have to plan meticulously to make sure I have all the ingredients. You have to do a lot of work before you actually start the work. So I have to make sure I have my prep in order. I have to make sure like for example, eggs are outrageous right now. So I had to like market research. Where's the best bang for my buck for the eggs so I don't lose any money, because I already gave these people quotes like a couple months ago before egg prices went up. So now I have to honor my word.
Well,
And
that's rough.
yeah, yeah, that was fun. But it's just so you have to, very few jobs you get to go to work and just do it, but you have to, in this situation, work before the work.
There's
Yeah.
so much. There's so much that goes in before, like, you turn on those lights, and everybody. I think the thing that people think about when they think about the restaurant business, if they think about the line, they think about service. They think about that time where orders are coming in and orders are going out. And don't get me wrong, that is a substantive part of a work shift. But what you don't see is hours upon hours of prep time going into it. If you're talking about private event, or you're talking about a home-based business, or you're talking about something along those lines, it's all of the prep work, like Peng is talking about, research and making sure that you've got everything ready to go, so that way you've timed it correctly, that you don't have a whole bunch of stuff sitting around because you've done it too early. Likewise, you can hit a deadline, and all like, you could have easily 12 hours worth of prep time for a single 3, 4, 5 hour dinner service, and then have all of the closing stuff and get everything ready to go. That's why, like, my wife has a hard time. Like, she's gotten used to it now, but it was hard for her at first when she realized just how broken my brain is when it comes to doing 87 different things at the same time, and the fact that I can multitask at such a degree, because if you cannot do that, the dead truth of it is you will not survive in the industry. It is just that simple.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna pile onto that a little bit, and then add some other things I think, and see what you guys think when it comes to food industry. But to pile on, like literally, it made so much sense to everyone. Like no one really thought about it at our store that they were having a hard time this morning, and someone said, "Oh, it's because Josh wasn't there Friday." No one had to question that at all. It's because like I am the one who orders the truck. And if the truck's wrong one day, that means all of the days the next week are going to be bad. They're all going to be bad
Cascading effect,
days.
absolutely.
Yeah. So like some of those things just make perfect sense. The things that are really weird in the food industry for me that I think you guys will probably agree. One, I'm going to say this one really quickly to move on to the other one. Um, people talk about how like you talk like a sailor. Nah, people in food curse way more than any sailor that I know.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
just part of the culture. The other thing is like there's this weird like competitiveness. Even though you all have to work on a team, you always have like the front of the house arguing about the back of the house. You always have like morning shift doesn't like night shift, and night shift doesn't like morning shift, because like you're constantly like, oh hey, I'm struggling now because what they did yesterday, so I'm mad at them, but also I need to work with them. So you have this like weird dichotomy of like constantly in competition but also constantly trying to work together, and it's a tension that never goes away and just gets worse and worse always.
I do. I love the competitiveness of a kitchen,
It
specifically
is fun though.
a prep kitchen, because my boss's boss, guy who makes six figures, and if he wanted to, could just sit at home and do pretty much nothing most days. He doesn't because he is pretty good at his job, but he could if he wanted to. Um, More than willing, fully willing. used to ask for it to come in and try to beat somebody's prep records in your store. Super fun. I love that. Something that wants to make everybody better. That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, I had the record for a lot of cut time speeds in our region for our restaurant until the person beat me, and then the person who beat me got fired like a week later. So I don't think that counts.
I could beat you.
That's true, but you're not in my pack anymore, so I don't have to worry about that. Also, I trained you, so I feel like I still get some credit. A little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah, also,
Josh groomed me. Josh groomed my entire life.
Stop saying that. Hey, but speaking of like how camp doesn't count, you do know that like I helped run the camp kitchen once because they were just being so
Groomer.
risk adverse. I had to go like teach them how to.
But they're all just old people. They're harmless.
Yeah. Well, they just don't follow health.
Harmless.
I helped a little bit one year.
Harmless.
Okay. Anyway, any things as far as like the culture of food industry that people should know about before we get into the meat of the episode 40 minutes in?
Yeah, I've got to double down on the competitiveness, at least on my side of the kitchen. When I was active in the industry, I was a jerk. I was not. I pushed people. I wanted to make people better. Was what I told myself. But there's an institutionalization of a way, just a way that it's done. Of I was brought in a certain way, and in order to make real chefs, you've got to bring them in a certain way, and that is to dog them until they get better. And don't get me wrong, there are some people that are out there that have some of the best knife skills that you could imagine, or have become better chefs after working with me. But at what cost? You know what I mean? And part of it is there's only when you are outside of leadership, there's only a certain number. There's only a finite number of full-time hours to allocate. And so you've got to prove yourself to get those hours, to make sure that you are full-time. When you are in leadership, there's this weird thing of I have reached the top of the mountain, and that means that every wolf is coming to knock me off the mountain. And so every time that we would get somebody that would come in and stage, anytime that we would get a new guy, it would be my goal to make sure that they knew who the guy was, that they knew who was head of the pack. Now, mind you, there is nothing healthy about what I'm describing. This is not good practice, and something that I have tried very hard now at this stage of my life, at this stage of my culinary career, to be able to give back to young chefs, to be able to give back to younger students. So that way, for all of the pissing and moaning and groaning that we do about not liking working with culinary students and all of this kind of stuff, then teach them something. Then give them some experience that they can sink their teeth into. So that way, when they do hit a line, when they do hit the restaurant, they actually know what they're doing. Mentor them, give them something. And so, yes, what you're talking about, even at the level of fast casual or anything like that, is true and systematic, straight up to 5-star fine dining. Which, for frame of reference, I've done all of those different versions of the culinary world. My favorite is upscale tavern. I think some of the most creative stuff is coming out of upscale tavern restaurants on the savory side. Part of it is I don't think it should take 7 people to plate one single dish. That's just not. I'm saying if you need tweezers to plate the plate, I think maybe we've lost track of things.
I love molecular gastronomy. Super interesting. Not something I do because I pretty much do need a degree for that. I just think it's awesome. extremely impractical and not nearly as groundbreaking as it seems, but I think it's awesome. So, for the meat of these episodes, we wanted to walk through 12 big theological topics often debated by theologians, podcasters, and pastors to see how those ideas impact people's everyday lives. We've covered our everyday lives at one point or another, and it's food. So, we're going to talk about the 12 topics that our Facebook group voted on as the biggest theological hot topics of our time. And we need you to tell us if you find the topic somewhat relevant, not relevant, really relevant, or you've never heard of it, which is fine and probably going to be normal. And then we're going to pick 1 to 3 of the topics to discuss further. Is everyone clear about the rules?
Yeah. I almost said
Yep.
Relevant,
correct.
somewhat relevant.
Yeah.
Not really. All
You're
right. Soteriology. And we'll just go Pang answer and then Joe answer every time.
good. You want me to answer now?
Yes.
I mean, I guess it's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess so.
Free will versus predestination.
Relevant.
I
And
don't
this
want
is-
it to be relevant, but unfortunately it is.
In the workplace specifically is what we're talking about. So, atonement models.
Nah.
Continuationism versus cessationism in regards
Nah.
to the gifts of the Spirit.
Well, actually, no. I had a conversation yesterday.
Yeah,
Mid.
that one's moderately relevant.
Christology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Relevant.
I would say that's not.
God's nature.
Oh, big one.
Same.
Social justice.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I feel like that one is really relevant. I just, we work in the South. The doctrine of Imago Dei.
No, that's not relevant for me.
Not in those terms, so I guess no.
The nature of Scripture.
Yeah.
Ecclesiology and missiology, which is what it means to be the church and how the
I
church
say,
approaches outreach.
It's not relevant for the industry, but it's relevant in my life.
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
Demonology or angelology.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got anywhere from 1 to 300 demons every lunch rush. And they just keep walking in. Eschatology.
It's relevant in my life.
Unfortunately, yes, it's relevant.
Yeah.
Also, TJ, we have to do this at some point. So one
At
of us
some
should do
point.
it now, and the other one should do it at the end of the series.
All right, you're going to do it now. Ready?
Oh, yeah, super easy.
Soteriology.
Yes, very
Free
relevant.
will versus predestination.
Not very relevant.
Atonement models.
Somewhat relevant.
Continuationism versus cessationism.
Very relevant.
Christology.
Somewhat relevant.
God's nature.
Not relevant.
Social justice.
Very relevant.
The doctrine of Imago Dei.
Very relevant.
The nature of Scripture.
Not relevant.
Ecclesiology and missiology.
Somewhat relevant.
Demonology or angelology.
Not relevant.
Eschatology.
In the workplace, not relevant.
That is what the series is about.
Yeah. In general, yes. But that's, not what the series is about. So, all right, guys, if you had to pick one or two, I'm going to say everybody has to pick one for this particular episode since there's two guests. I think that's fair. One of the above theological topics that you think are relevant to your day-to-day life to talk more about, what would it be? Let's start with Liz. If you had to pick one of the above that you think is relevant.
Pretty much like the character of God one. I
All
know
right,
y'all said it's something different. But
Yeah, character
that
of
one.
God. Could you unpack a little bit of why that's relevant in your
Yeah, I mean, you talked about a little, but a lot of people that I get in the industry and just topics is they just can't understand why a good God, or what in their words supposedly a good God, will let bad things happen. So they just they don't get it. And it's like, well, why can't he just kind of like that Bruce or Evan Almighty thing. Why can't he just like snap a finger and everything be good and my life be good and stuff like that? So just kind of like understanding the God's character, and even like in love, you know, you don't get your way. Like a parent will discipline you and like love you through suffering, but you still have to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I like that. Joe, if you had to pick one of the 12 that you think's relevant to your life to unpack a little bit, what would it be?
Yeah, so specifically around the industry, I would say the same thing, the nature of God, because so many of the other ones that have come up as well as that one kind of fall back, like if you follow the breadcrumb trail back to where the major point of disconnection is, it's a misunderstanding of the nature of God, or a lack of full and complete understanding to the nature or character of God. And so a lot of times when you're having conversations about free will, about a good God, about the church, about those different topics and things like that, it kind of goes back
Mhm.
to that central idea of who God is in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Good stuff. I'll also go to make things fair so that TJ and I are both doing this part of the thing. I'm going to pick the Imago Dei as the one I think is particularly relevant. I feel like if we taught this better, because there's so many Christians in the world, people might treat each other better. Specifically, with the food industry, there are a lot of times where I see people treating other people as though they just simply don't matter. Like a customer's just like another number. Other people you work with, they're a stepping stones, or they're just, you can talk to them like they just trash, whatever. And it's like, no, like, let's see each other in the image of God. Like we're people who actually matter. I think it would make the workplace better and probably the world.
Yeah, that is like
Yeah.
the exact reason that I do love my job.
Mhm.
Because I know the people who are like freaks about Chipotle and like can't wait to go like every day.
Chipotle is my life.
And I
Yeah.
I just like to make people's day better. So I'm able to take a lot of pride in the fact that I'm doing that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Also, at the same time, I'm able to judge these people. Because why are you spending $27 on lunch 5
Don't
days a week?
Judge
that's not
me,
what we're going with.
TJ.
And I'm just
Lest
saying,
ye
it's a
be
lot.
judged.
It's a lot of money. I
I
eat
work
it for
hard
free.
for my money.
That's true. I also would not spend my money at Chipotle. It's just so expensive.
Frankly, mediocre food. Oh, wait a minute. Did I
Not
say the
mine.
quiet part out loud?
That also does depend which store you go to. I think personally,
It
most
does.
of them
It's
are
not supposed
lazy.
to, but it does.
Most of them are
Personally,
really
I
lazy.
like Moe's better, but it's fine.
I agree.
They have
I'm
more
allowed to
and
agree about that
worse
specifically.
options.
Yeah, but bacon.
Yeah.
Bacon does belong on anything. That's why I don't call myself a chef. I will hold to that belief no matter what, pretty much.
So,
I've yet to find something.
do any one of the topics that we mentioned do you think they're particularly irrelevant to your everyday life, Joe? Like, so one of these just like, yeah, that's never coming up.
Um, Generally something like eschatology or something along those lines is not it's not going to be something that I reach for unless somebody specifically has a question about it, because so much of the focus is um how do we love God well, follow Jesus well, and love others well.
Yeah.
And sure, as Christians, we have the argument of, of a future hope and all of that jazz. No problems. But whenever it happens, however it happens, whatever the situation is, okay, like that's what it's gonna be. That's what's up. That's when I think we've got more than enough on our plate today as practicing Christians in the workplace, and I'm trying very hard, like you said at the very beginning, you all kind of like really cross the streams on this one because you're talking to people that are very steeped in the ministry world as well as the culinary world. And so I'm really trying very hard to answer these questions purely from a workplace perspective because all of this, a lot of what I'm saying also you could copy and paste, but to my ministry life and my
Yeah.
pastoral life, but that's its own category and thing. But I think whether you're hitting it from the God POV, with if you have people generally in the restaurant business, we're a bunch of pirates. Like we come together because we are a bunch of pirates, and it is an industry that really welcomes saint and sinner to uh, like unlike really any other industry that there is. And so a lot of times you have people asking really big questions, and so that's why those kinds of things get pointed to. How do I live this life, and what does that mean in terms of God? So really having people focus on, is it going to happen this way? Is it going to happen that way? Is it going to happen in 2 years? Is it going to happen in 87 years? Is it going to happen in 2,347 years? I don't know, and I don't care. It's going to happen, and awesome that it's going to happen, but that's not the a main point for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just something Joe said reminds me of like one of the cool things of the food industry is you do have to serve anybody, basically. I mean, if you own your
Anybody
own
and
business,
everybody.
it's a little bit different, but you know, it's humbling when someone comes in with a shirt you find offensive or something that's like God's not real, whatever, and you're like, I'm still have to serve them same way I would everybody else, and it's kind of like washing the feet of 200 people every lunch, but without the
Yeah.
feet part. Yeah,
Yeah. Some days I would rather wash
yeah,
200
that's
pairs of feet.
me too. Yeah,
Sundays specifically for us.
Sundays aren't that bad for us.
Yeah.
Fridays,
But
though.
I was like, I do agree. Like eschatology, I don't spill oil in my kitchen and then think, oh, this is just like Revelation. Oh,
uh,
even
I
though it
wish
is a
for
little bit
hellfire
like Revelations
sometimes, but
because it does happen. But what about you, Ping? Any one of these topics stand out to you as particularly irrelevant?
For me, would be the demonology one because whenever I do talk with people, because it's usually natural conversation. It's like, how's it going? Blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, tell me about this. And so when I get the opportunity to share my faith, I want just to talk about Jesus because they're either A, they already know about it and stuff, or B, they absolutely like don't know anything. And so before you can get into like demonology, angelology, like angelology, yeah. But I just want to like, you know, talk to them about Jesus. And so that's why it's at least relevant for me. Now, like Christians and
yeah,
people, we talk about it all the time. But so in my workplace or when I was in the corporate like kitchen, it hardly ever came up. I mean, as TJ said, some people acted demonic, but they didn't want to talk about themselves like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as people who are all ministerially active to different degrees and have also worked with the public, what topics would you rather hear about in the church or from our theologians? Like, what should the pastors be focusing on to be relevant to the chefs of our world?
I think the nature of what it means to be saved because I feel like we have this watered down Christianity that the world has accepted, and so a lot of the times it's like, oh, I know Jesus, so I'm good, but they don't know what it means to be set apart. So I feel like that's something like we could focus on. Even the people who have been saved for 20 years and they think they have it all together, just having that fresh like connection with Jesus. I feel like that's really neglected.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I think it's about bringing it out of the classroom, out of the pulpit, and into the everyday lives of people. There is the main crux of what Jesus taught us is Matthew 5 through 7. And then the expectation is you go and do it. The expectation is you live this out. And in the context of church and in the context of what is coming from Christianity, so much of it is centered around serving others. So much of it is around what does it mean to follow Christ. And if we can bring that to a point of not arguing about a theological or doctrinal stance, not arguing about a sociological point of view or something along those lines, and bring it to a layer where the people who are um, the everyday person is coming to understand who Jesus is, how God sees humanity, the nature of God, and what it means to live that out. That's where you start to see a new day dawn in the everyday life of a Christian, and Christians doing the obedience part, not out of works or religious piety or anything like that, but because they understand that out of relationship and love, you show love and serve other people. You love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love others as yourself. And I fundamentally believe that we can put all of those things into terms that is grabbable and capturable by everyday people, where you don't need all of this ministry background or to use half of the words like you use those words, TJ, and everybody on this call gets it, right? We have the training and the credentials or the experience or whatever to know what you're talking about when you say that. And to the target audience of the whole church, that makes all of the sense in the world. You're putting it into terms that the target audience will understand. An everyday person, a dude that just got out of prison, who the only gig that he can get is working the grill at a tavern or working at a local restaurant, and he's just trying to put one foot in front of the other to do better with his life and to care for his family or whatever the case may be. He doesn't know what soteriology is. He doesn't know what he doesn't know what any of these words mean. But what he does know is practical application of the core tenets and foundations of what it means to follow Jesus well and love others well.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Do you know McDonald's doesn't hire felons, by the way? Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've thought
It's like
about it. Our
anti-restaurant.
president would not be able to work at Chipotle, but
Yeah, isn't that wild?
yeah. Anyway, one of those things, and Joe was kind of hitting on it there, so I feel like it's a good transition. Also, I forgot to mention this to TJ, but he's going to be writing down the answers to that last question we just did, 10A, as well as this next question. Because after our series, we're going to have a roundtable of just pastors and seminary teachers and say, hey, here's what people said. How do you respond to that? So I'm excited for that roundtable as well. But each of us see the world through different eyes, right? Like kind of what Joe was talking about. And one of the things that we have these pastors, church leaders, theologians who are listening to our show, one of the things, if they've never worked in food, there's certain parts of the world they just will never see. So what's something that you guys, I'll throw it to Liz first, think that our pastors, theologians who haven't worked in food could learn from your perspective that they might never get to see through your eyes when it comes to this?
Well, I mean, specifically food, they probably do not know how to maybe just, gosh, that's hard when you say for food, because for me it's like pastry, so we all sweet, because everything's sunshine in the pastry land. But I would say something that they may understand is just the because I feel like they do because they have long hours, they have early morning, they have unexpected delays. But so one thing that comes to mind that's kind of relevant, not relevant. So if we have a Wednesday night service and you letting that spirit go, and you're like, I just want the, I want the spirit to flow and stuff like that. You don't have to wake up and open the bakery the next morning. So they're like, let's just let the spirit move. We're not on a time schedule. The heck I am, sir. I have to be at the bakery at 4 a.m. I don't get to sleep in. I don't get you know what I mean? So I think because, and it's such a blessing, and I remind my husband this all the time. I'm like, this is your full-time job, so you get flexibility, which is really a big blessing for those who get to do full-time ministry and they don't have to be dual professionals. But that's just not the reality for a lot of people. You have to be mindful of other people's time. You know what I mean? Like just like the other night last night we had a young adults night, and I was giddy. It got ended at a decent time because I wake up at 4 a.m. to work before I even go to my corporate job. So I bake before then, and it ended. But then like the last young adult nights we had, the dude at 10 o'clock, he moved on. He was like, I feel like the Lord wants us to take communion at 10 o'clock on a Monday night. I was like, sir, we have jobs the next day. Do you want us to be like kind to our coworkers tomorrow? Because you get to sleep in. Like you get to go into your office. So I guess like that's something they can be mindful and to think about, just because, I mean, your church, if you look at it in a ministry setting, I mean, you need your volunteers. Obviously, like you're not, I don't want to say you're nothing without your volunteers because we're nothing without Jesus, but you just have to kind of like think of people's time, because yes, it's all about Jesus, but you don't want, I mean, you hear about church burnout all the time. If
You heard
that
it here
kind of
first.
loosely answers your question. I feel like I kind of like tiptoed around it.
Yeah, Pang hates the Holy Spirit. That's what
I
Pang
do
just
not hate the Holy Spirit. I'm just saying
TLDR, Chef Pang
you
hates
Would
have
have added
to.
pneumology. She would have said, "Not that."
No, I'm just saying like it's hard. You forget about it because yes, like we love the Spirit. We love it when it moves. But like you don't want an elementary school teacher who has to be at class at 6:30, you know what I mean, the next day. You want them to be kind. You want them to be the best. You want them to show the love of Jesus. And I have trouble showing the love of Jesus with 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I know Liz has to go. So you can leave whenever, and we will miss you.
I'll
But-
catch what you say about me behind my back later.
I'm gonna back you up.
Hey, Chef.
See it.
Appreciate
But
you.
I agree. Time is one of the big things, and that's one of the things like not just pastors, but even like my parents who just don't have similar jobs. Like people in food typically aren't just working one job. I'm lucky that I get to. But like a lot of the people in food are working like several different jobs. They're also in school. They're also like 500 different things. I am in 2 different master program and in school. And people are like, well, can't you just like once a month, like that a Saturday you're gonna have free? And I'm like, no, actually, I have 2 days free a week. One of them is constantly doing school. The other one is maybe I can sleep once. And even when it comes to like, I'm gonna speak directly to our pastors and let Joe also go off. But like. And TJ probably has some stuff he would add too, but like, not only is it like, I think the given answer people would expect is also true of like, hey, the Sunday crowd is also just the worst people. They are so rude. And if the fact that so many people leave church and can be that rude to people in the food things, tell me like, we're not doing something right at the church. You're not going to get tipped by the church people. That's an issue.
That's actually like a thing. So like, that's not
that's a huge
something that comes with like, that's not over dramatized by like TV shows or social media or whatever. But like, first off, if you watch The Bear, there's a scene that is probably the truest scene, and for the sake of the 2 co-hosts here, I will not put them in a situation where they've got to find a censor button to cut this out. But one chef says to another chef, "F brunch." My wife did not realize how true that was until we went to my former executive chef's restaurant that she opened up. And we were talking about how we used to run brunch together. And she unsolicited looks at me and goes, "Yeah, F brunch." And I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. But part of it is that crowd that does frequent a restaurant right after service is some of the absolute worst.
Yeah, so maybe teach true to the spirit more too. But
Yeah,
but
I actually do firmly believe the reason that Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday is not so that their employees can go to church. It's so that they don't have to serve anyone that just came from church.
yeah, I've actually heard from a lot of people if they had a choice when it comes to catering, if they were allowed to just not cater to church events, they would because
Yeah.
they don't tip. But also,
Nope.
the main thing I actually wanted to say was like with the time thing that like Liz was getting at is like also it's like the way people talk in church, like they're giving you some wise advice. Just wake up a little bit early so you can read your Bible. I actually do that, but that means I'm waking up at 3:30. You know, like like for people in food, that means something wildly different. You're like, oh, wake up a little bit late, stay up late, or whatever. And like the way, like a lot of the times in churches, the way people talk about, you just find a little bit of time to read your Bible, and then I'm in here watching how early people have to get up, how the struggle is to just keep a restaurant opening, and then how late they have to close, and then I'm also in there like watching people on their lunch break, and I know how busy normal people's lives are because people are trying to run in there, grab a burrito real quick, and are like, oh man, I don't have 5 minutes to grab my food. And I'm like, they're complaining that they don't have enough time to grab food. And that's something I feel like a lot of our pastors don't realize like and this isn't, this is me seeing people going to the restaurants. So this is like normal American life is just that busy. And I feel like a lot of our seminary teachers and pastors maybe don't quite grasp that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. So hard, yes and amen to everything that Peng said and everything that you said. I'll hit a different angle. Um, you had brought up before, Josh, that um there is a grand um equality when it comes to if you walk into the restaurant and you are wearing clothes and you have money, then the people in the back of the house must serve you. It matters not who you voted for, what you believe, where you're from, or any of those things. So there is a forced equality of service in the restaurant business. And I think that sometimes in the church world, in the ministry world, we get wrapped up in hardline divisions or specific scenarios or situationalism of, oh, I have to first and foremost focus on this group of people, but then afterwards, if there's anything left, I can give to these other people and different things like that. And I think there's a rigidity that comes along with that when you look at not just who, but how. Because a lot of times when people think about service, they think about time and they think about money. Oh, I don't have the time to do this. Oh, I don't have the money to give to this. Well, what about a kind word? What about a well placed phone call? What if you make a meal and take it to somebody? What if you just spend time with that individual? I think there's a creativity that comes out in the restaurant business that I think some chefs that have no idea about life outside of the ministry bubble that they can learn from and understand that there is so much creativity that can be brought into caring for other people, that how uncomplicated it is to love your neighbor well, and how much you
Yeah.
can accomplish with just a little bit of resources. That not every single community event needs to be $500,000 and take 7 months of planning and have 14 different committees and all to get this whole big extravaganza done. That you can literally just throw the doors open and say, you know what, come grab a meal, come have something to eat,
Hmm.
come hang out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that, I mean, that gets. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna offer up another one that you made me think of. because you also like in the food, especially the front of house people will get this more than the back of house people. Now I'm using food lingo, but it's fine.
Mhm.
Something that I think pastors don't see is like a lot of our pastors and teachers spend a lot of time talking at people, talking to people, and even sometimes they're telling people to be good listeners. And like so many people, and it's funny, I'm guilty of this when I've preached before, thinking, oh, some of the people talk afterwards, they just want to like look pious or look like they're religious. And now I'm like, no, there's some people who literally just want anyone to talk to. They will come into your restaurant and sit there and talk to the cashier for 10, 20 minutes. And your good cashiers know about pretty much every customer's life if they come in on a regular basis. And your bad cashiers will spend the entire rest of the shift complaining about that guy and how he slowed us down talking to him so long. And like I have one guy that I work with who literally like, oh hey man, how's your daughter? How's this? I knew this. I had a guy who came in last Sunday. I know his diet plan. He was 3 pounds away. I'm like, hey man, where are we at this week? And there's something that you know when you're on the front line about these people that a lot of times in your church you just don't know about people's life like that. And maybe it should be the other way around. Maybe. TJ, you
There's
Yeah.
a
have
book that
anything as far as like insights from?
I feel like it would be really helpful for a pastor to work in a restaurant on a Sunday and see how little so many people think of other people.
absolutely
Yeah.
get.
Like what
I think it would be
they,
jarring and eye opening for a pastor
yeah,
to come work the line on a Sunday or a Saturday night.
yeah, they don't care about you.
No.
Customers, they don't. If you're behind the line, they don't care about you.
Yeah. And it's so
Or
funny
like
because
I
like
would say like 6 out of 10 times.
yeah. Well, and that's one of those language things that's interesting. I feel like a lot of times in our church culture, we say serve somebody, and we're thinking of like, we're going to go do this event that's serving the community and feel good about ourselves afterwards. Whereas if you talk to someone who worked in food about serving somebody, you're thinking about actually having to humble yourself, actually having to hear about someone's life and do something for them,
Mhm.
even if they might be the rudest person on earth.
Yep.
So that word serving takes on a different meaning.
Yeah, and also so many people, and it just seems to happen more often on Sundays. Will come up to the front and be like, "Hi, is there a manager? Yada yada.
They're so
Hey, my
entitled.
table's dirty. Can somebody please come clean it?"
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That is so
There's
true.
40 people behind you.
You want them all to wait on you. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, I can
It
clean
is an
your
entitled
table.
group. Yeah.
But
There's a book that
also
I
like they'll come,
recommended to.
yeah, no, they'll come complain about like the homeless guy sitting in the back. Like, is he bothering you, or is he just homeless in public? It's not okay for him to be in here where
Yeah.
it's dry and warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll definitely tell him to leave.
Hmm.
I won't. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
He eats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, we do live in the South, so eventually somebody will buy him something to eat.
That is also true. But yeah. Joe, that book.
Um, there's a book that was written by one of the former owners of a an upscale restaurant in New York City called 11 Madison Park. The name of the book is Unreasonable Hospitality. Um, Will is actually I suggested it to Will the during the Bear episode for Systematic Ecology, which if you want to hear more of us geek out about Chef Stuff, Pang was on that one too. Head over there. I'm not even on the show and I'm doing cheap plugs. There is that it is basically talking about how the whole thing was the model for what made them such a superior place was unreasonable hospitality. That the idea is that you are so in tune with what the restaurant what the customer needs or wants that it almost seems like you're reading their mind because you're reading the room, you're reading people's body
Mm-hmm.
language, you are being so thoughtful of the other person that you are trying to provide whatever it is that they need before they have the chance to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a book that I would recommend to any pastor to go through with their staff, because I say this both as a chef and a pastor. It is our job to provide unreasonable hospitality. That is literally the name of the game. That is the very heartbeat of it. And I think sometimes we do get so lost on what is the doctrinal stance, who are we catering to, what are the numbers, how many people are showing up to the services, what's the budget, all of those kinds of things, and we lose sight of what it means to actually serve somebody, regardless of whether or not you like them, whether or not you would otherwise break bread with them, whether or not you agree with who they voted for, whether or not you think that they need to give some kind of public apology for whatever stance, whether or not you think that they're soft, whatever the case may be. This is the great equalizer that everybody needs to eat, and that in the restaurant business, your money spends, you are welcome.
Yeah. Just speaking of hospitality, I want to rant for a quick second. Some people just don't get it, like that it's more worth it for like to let something slip by so that they will come back. They're going to come back. You do not need to leave from behind the cash register and chase somebody down to get them to pay for a tortilla.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not worth it. I will say, and this is one of those things. Like at first, I was like, "What is wrong with these people?" And then the more I'm like at the store I'm at now, I'm like, "Oh, actually, this is what all food should be like, and probably everything we do." I won't say the guy's name because I legally can't. Guy I worked with though, I remember like, one of the first days I came in, I thought it was so wild, and it turns out it's because he actually also works as a chef in other restaurants, so he's just mindful. Working the line, out of nowhere, he grabs a bowl, puts rice and beans in it, and I'm like, what are you doing, man?" And he's like, it's cool. Guy walks through the door. I didn't see the guy's car coming. Apparently, the other dude saw his car coming and was, "Hey, man, how's it going? Is it going to be chicken or barbacoa today?" And he just knows this guy's order, saw his car, and he's just ready. And I'm like, dude, that's way too much. And now I'm thinking about it, and I've been at the restaurant, this particular store, long enough, and I'm like, no, maybe we should all just be a little bit like that. We know what kind of rice and beans he wants. We're not sure if he wants chicken or barbacoa, but I know him, and I'm ready for him. And it's like, man, yeah.
Unreasonable hospitality.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it really annoys me when regulars switch it up.
Me too. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't get barbacoa. You get chicken. Stop.
Like one time, and he felt so bad about it
So
that
funny.
he placed the order online. Is how bad he felt about it.
God,
He
so
ordered a
funny.
kid's meal, and I was grabbing it and taking it out to the shelf for our to-go orders, and I was like, "Josh," and he was like, "Yeah." I didn't want to come through the line, but
that's funny. Yeah.
So, in this series, we are going to be speaking to a police officer, a middle school teacher, logistics worker, a biochemist, a brewer, a physical therapist, a welder, a strategic account manager, a ninja coach, which is a coach for ninjas, and more. What would y'all be most interested in learning from a series like this? And is there anything specific that you were hoping we would ask? And it's just you now, Joe. We exiled Pang for not being spirited.
I
Yeah, she
want to
didn't like the
know
Holy
what
Spirit,
the through line between ministry and teaching ninjas looks like. That is on the top of my list of what I would like to know. But
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting, all jokes aside, to know how do these things translate? How do these principles and these ideas that we talk about that are so readily grabbed for by um by ministry professionals, by pastors, and things like that. What do these words mean to people in these different contexts? Because I think it's been clear throughout this entire episode that in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different situations and contexts, we use words in the restaurant business that the ministry world uses differently. And you can look at that and say, why? Why do those things have two different meanings? You can look at those same words in other contexts and know that they mean different things. And so I think it'll be interesting to see as we have these go-to lingo pieces that are so canned and so cliche or so readily reachable. What does that mean to somebody else?
Yeah. And speaking of which, I'm gonna keep this on brand. You know, we always ask for tangible action at the end of each episode to help better engender church unity. And I feel like a lot of people before have said to serve. You know, serve. I think it's a good answer, so I'm gonna go with it. But I'm gonna make ask for something specific, Joe. How can people better serve? You know, hearing this episode, like, oh wait, what serving? Am I actually serving? What's something they could do that's like truly serving another?
Be present in the situation, in the context. So rather than either treating somebody like a one size fits all project or assuming that you think you know what the other person needs or wants, actually take time to be present in their context and ask them and find out how can you best use your time and talents. And if it's not that straightforward, be willing to get creative about it. If you know that a person just needs somebody to talk to, well, use a situation that works for you in your context and that will bring life to them and make it more dynamic than just it has to look this hyper specific way or it has to fit this specific criteria in order to be real service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
All right. What changes, Joe? What we all start listening to Joe. What happens?
The world is a much better place. You just listen to me. TLDR, you can learn two things. If you missed this entire episode and you only listen to the front half and the back half, you know that Pang hates the Holy Spirit. And if everybody
Correct.
just listens to me, the world is a much better place. That's all.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Then you have people addressing real situations in real context. You have people who are really caring for the specific needs without feeling like they need to burn themselves out in order to actually care for other people, and that they can operate within the margins of their own life while still being present in the lives of other people.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Good stuff.
before we wrap up, we're gonna be doing our God moment. We will just ask everyone to share a moment in their life recently where they saw God, whether that be a blessing, challenge, mode, worship, whatever it may be. Josh always goes first to give us that little peace of mind. So, Josh, kind of a layup this week. Do you have a God moment for us?
Yeah. I moved into a new home.
Wow.
It was stressful and crazy, but a blessing all at the same time. And then when all the stress and craze got over, it was my birthday, and I was blessed with a Steam Deck that my good friend TJ is going to disciple me on how to use. So lots of blessings, and also a lot of reminder of why I need to rest. Yeah, physically, spiritually, and all other ways. I just need
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah. For me, my God moment. Uh, the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl.
That's a good God moment. Yeah,
It brings me a lot of joy.
yeah. God,
That's
definitely
not what it
appreciated that.
is, but it does bring me a lot of joy that the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl. Uh, my cousin got married this past Saturday.
Whoa.
That's great, you know.
It's cool.
Yeah,
We
if you find the picture on Facebook, TJ was dressed really nice. I was like, man, TJ looks good.
yeah, it's an awful picture. It's
I
really
think you
bad.
look good. TJ's still single, also, ladies. This whole church dating app is coming out soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, our next series is whole church speed dating. We will be moving to YouTube Shorts and TikTok, just for that series.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I love weddings. It's so fun to see who comes up with what. Like, the intimacy of a wedding is something that I feel like is really hard to match, and it's awesome. I love weddings a lot, especially when they're all like within the family. It's fun to compare weddings.
Not all within the family. He's from South Carolina, not West Virginia.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all my cousins' weddings, is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But also, I was sitting there, and this is just like how big our family is, and I was sitting there. I showed up not last, but pretty close to last, and I just sat down in the front with the rest of my immediate family, and I heard like the banjo playing, and like when I was walking in, I acknowledged that it was a real person with a real banjo sitting back there, and a man and woman with like the woman had a guitar, she was singing. At no point did it cross my mind that was my aunt and uncle singing and playing in my cousin's wedding. Not like her parents, but a different aunt and uncle. Until I saw their son running around, and I was like, "Huh, where's Paige and Jason?" And someone was like, "Oh, they were behind you.
Funny.
They were the ones playing the music." Idiot.
Yeah.
My cousin Jason's the best banjo player in Tennessee. Officially. Several-time winner.
Now, when you get into Tennessee, you're getting close to that West Virginia area, too. So, I don't know, man. I'm from Tennessee. I'm allowed to make that joke.
But, I don't know. I think best banjo player in Tennessee also does equate to the best banjo player in the world. Anyway, Joe, do you have a God moment for us this week?
Yeah, I'm very close to being completely healed from breaking my leg. It is
Praise God.
very close. So I got the word that I can start moving around some without the brace on and all of that. So
That reminds me of my backup God moment. Copper has like 1 week left. And he can take his muzzle off. He already has his sutures off, so he's also almost healed. Joe and Copper on this journey together, you know.
Yeah. Loudest muzzled dog I've ever seen.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
if you liked this episode or if you hated this episode, why are you still here? This was an hour and a half long. If you hated it, you should have left a long time ago. If you hated this and you listened to the whole thing because you dropped your phone under your bed or something, I'm sorry. It's not over yet. Please consider sharing it with a friend or an enemy. Share with your cousins.
Especially your cousins at their wedding. Stop them in the middle of their ceremony and share this episode with them.
Yeah, that's what I want, personally, from you. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit Josh.
Yeah. That last
World's your oyster.
Probably possible. Probably a thing to do. Hey guys, check out other shows on the Unresolved Podcast Network too. Coming soon. I'm gonna do a coming soon. Pastor Will Rose is starting a show. We'll laugh about that later. Talk about stories that weren't funny at the time, but they find it funny now. Also, check out Friday Night Frights. Joe Day helps out over there with Christian Ashley, and they talk about frights on Friday nights. Not every Friday night. Friday nights. Yeah, a lot of other good shows in the network too, so check them all out, perhaps.
Yeah, and we do hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we are going to continue the Job Fair series with Nick Polk, the production editor of Malorn, author of Tolkien, pop culture, and a middle school teacher. And then we're going to be joined by Ryan Does, the host of Skipping Church, and Across the Bifrost. He's also a merchandiser for a regional bread company. After that, Jared Kuntz, Josh's uncle, devout Catholic and strategic account manager for Spectrum, will join us to keep the series pushing. And at the end of season 1, Francis Chan will be joining us.
Probably, if someone tells him about it.
Yeah, as a host, actually.
Yeah,
not a guest.
Yeah, when he joins us, the season 1 ends because it becomes an entire different podcast. It'll become the Francis Chan podcast, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. Season 2 is beyond us.
Yeah, the whole Chan.